Welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta, and today I am here with Amanda, Queen of Swords Copywriting. So, Amanda, how do you deal when the shit gets real? Or just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I know we're going to get into that question right here in a minute, but yeah, my name's Amanda. I am a copywriter and marketing strategist for spiritual entrepreneurs. I used to be a professional tarot card reader and Reiki healer. I still do those things for myself, but I sort of let that background infuse what I do with my copywriting business. I'm also a professional musical theater performer and a singer songwriter. So that's kind of a whole different facet of my life that will probably come up as we talk too. So, yeah, I'm just a multifaceted creative and out here trying to not have to work for people I can't stand.
I feel like that should be like the saying of 2024. I'm not going to work for people I don't want to work for anymore.
Yeah. So, how do I deal when the shit gets real? Truth be told, sometimes I don't. But most of the time, I pick myself up after I don't. And a big thing with that is just having supportive people around you that you can talk things through with, having a partner that is healthy and loving and not trying to sabotage you at every step. Um, and I also feel like for me, going back to my inner world and my spirituality and grounding myself in real life while still having my head up in the clouds and rooted in something that's beyond me as well. So that's kind of how I try to handle things when things aren't going well. And the last few years have certainly been a lot of that for me. So I've been put to the test many a time, but I think that I've grown and matured a lot through that process. And I actually kinda like who I am now as a result.
I mean, that's important. It's important to like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sometimes people say, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," and I sort of hate that phrase because, honestly, when things get really hard, you you come out the other side of that not at all the person you were before, and if you come out on the other side stronger, that's a testament to you as a person, not a testament to, trauma being a good thing. So I always like to say that when we talk about resilience and working through things that are really difficult, if you can manage to get on the other side of that with any kind of grace, any kind of poise, any kind of strength, then you should just pat yourself on the back for that because that's all a testament to you and your character.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's kind of funny. I think you're the first person when, we always ask when it used to be mean kind of, how you deal when the shit gets real. And I think you're the first person to mention your partner. So I really appreciate that you're like, my partner is important. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I met him during the pandemic when my entire life was falling apart.
oh no.
So, yeah, so we went through the fire together right at the beginning, and so, and it's 4 years later now, so I guess it's going pretty well.
I would say so, especially since you, like you said, you started out not in a great place. And I mean, since you went there, you mentioned, the pandemic. The pandemic had quite an effect on all of us. But you mentioned in your pre-interview that you lost work, you lost your home. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so at the time in early 2020, my career as a singer-songwriter was finally actually making me some money. I was gigging almost every weekend or at least multiple times a month. I was working as a tarot reader and starting to bring in some money through that business. Uh, you can probably put together that all of those things require people meeting in person and meeting in large groups. So when everything shut down, it was like overnight, I had absolutely no income. And at least where I was in Florida at the time, Luckily, they did provide some relief even for people who were independent contractors, but it took several months for that to go through. And in the meantime, my lease was up at my apartment. And how could you possibly sign a new lease when you don't have a job or any prospect of one? So I, made the decision to just say, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm just going to decide that I'm not re signing my lease. Uh, in the middle of just trying to figure out what I even had skills for that I could apply for that didn't require people meeting in person, which was, I mean, I have a degree in musical theater. Like everything I've ever done with my life is about performance or meeting in person, one on one contact with other people. So, luckily, a friend of mine said, "I'm picking you up today. I have a job interview for you at this." It's called the Hotel Cassadaga, and it's sort of famous. If you're down in Florida, you probably have heard of it. It's famous for being a haunted hotel in this
Ooh.
little, like, spiritualist encampment. So, it's a very cool spot and has been featured on a number of, like, paranormal investigation type shows.
Ooh, okay, I'm gonna have to watch. Has, what's his name? Has Ghost Adventures done it with Zach Bagans?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I know a few of them have, so it would probably be pretty easy to find, but, and if you Google it, you might see an article with me in it too.
I love it.
Yeah. So, as I was in Florida, they were still having psychic readings through this hotel as long as everybody was masked while it was happening, and we kind of, like, were able to stay, like, 6 feet apart while we were doing the reading and things like that. So I went and interviewed for this position. My friend just dragged me there. I got the job at, like, the 11th hour, so I started that job, I think, on, like, the 1st week of June, and, like, 2 weeks later was when my lease was up. So, it just so happened that someone who was at the hotel lived on a houseboat nearby, and there was this houseboat next to hers that was completely gutted that the people who owned it were looking to sell. Mind you, I know nothing about construction or redoing a house. I don't know anything about this.
Or
So,
boats, probably?
I don't well,
Maybe a
I
little.
know a little bit about boats because my
Okay, you
grand
had something.
but the boat didn't have working motors, so that wasn't doing
Ah,
me any
okay.
good anyway. So, this boat was a 1968 houseboat that was just completely gutted on the inside. And I figured, okay, for like 500 bucks, I can buy this thing. And these people say they're going to help me fix it up. So I have at least have somewhere to live with my chihuahua. So it's Florida and there are alligators all over the place. And
Uh-uh.
so, yeah,
Mm-mm,
yeah.
mm-mm. Hard pass for me.
Yeah, the alligators turned out to be not the worst neighbors.
Go figure.
Yeah, so I it took a few months before the boat was ready, and I bounced from one Airbnb to another, just trying to keep things afloat. It was no pun intended.
I was gonna
Uh
say, that would've been fun.
yeah, so it was pretty wild, and uh also fun was that the supply issues made it so it took like 2 weeks for my composting toilet to arrive.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, I learned you can make a toilet with a 5-gallon bucket and a $10 toilet seat that you buy at Home Depot. That was fun. So when you say shit gets real or shit hits the fan, that would be reality for me at that moment.
I mean, you had a good friend that got you a job, so props to your friend, but Lord almighty.
Yeah. Yeah. So that yeah, I will say this about it, that up until this point, I had lived a pretty privileged life, and you don't realize it until you're in that situation, just how many things you took for granted. Something as simple as a toilet. something
Mhm.
as obvious as having a safe place to live. Um, yeah, and, you know, my family was also having their own crises at the time of the pandemic, so there's only so much people can really help you,
Yeah.
and I mean, in some ways, I look at it and I go, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me." And then on the other hand, I remember that I was walking my dog in my neighborhood, like a week before I had to move out of my apartment. And, when you have a dog, you kind of get friendly with the people in your apartment complex who also
Yeah.
have dogs. There was a woman who had a pug, and her pug was friends with my dog. And she heard basically that I had to move out and my family wasn't nearby, I didn't really have any help, and, this person's a relative stranger, has no stake in whether or not I'm okay or not, and she and her dad came over to my apartment and helped me pack up my stuff,
Aw,
and
how nice.
when I tell you, it's like I was basically on the floor, like, just looking at all this stuff overwhelmed, like, you go into kind of freeze when you're in that mental state, and strangers just helped me, you know? My friend was just like, "Get in my car, I have a job for you." Like, people showed up for me who I wouldn't have really expected to, um, and that's where any story of resilience and overcoming, you have to also look at the other people that are a part of that picture and the other people who showed up, because I really don't know what would have happened if they didn't.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I feel like you should write a book about your time on the houseboat.
I've thought about it.
An
I
alligator and
mean
a chihuahua.
I mean, my neighbor literally had a story of punching an alligator in the face. Like, this
That's
is redneck
mhm.
Florida. Like
Oh my god. There's a show that I watch and the main character on it, I don't know if you've ever heard of Archer, but the main character on Archers, that's like one of his biggest fears is alligators. And like when he talked about it, how like he's like, it's an apex predator that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years unchanged. And I was like, oh my god, he's right. That's terrifying.
well, I'll give you a little bit of insight that might make you feel less terrified.
All right, I'm ready.
It's really crocodiles you wanna be afraid of, not alligators, and here's why. So, alligators are lone predators, so they don't hunt in packs. What that
That's a good
means
thing.
Yeah, what that means is a fully grown human adult would take more energy for them to kill than they would receive from eating you. So
Okay.
that's why with alligators, the main thing you wanna worry about is small animals, children under the age of, like, 5, and you wanna worry about if, like, your arm or your leg is, like, hanging over and and they wouldn't be able to tell that it's attached to your entire body.
Got it. Okay. Note to
Other
self.
other than that, they're probably not going to attack you unless you do something that makes them want to attack you, like hurt their kids or make them feel threatened. So basically, if you leave them alone, most of the time they're going to leave you alone.
Okay. Okay.
Crocodiles are the ones that hunt in packs. So one of them will like drag you under the water while the other one kills you. So those are the ones you want to worry about. And they're not in Florida. So
All right. Well, man, this is not a conversation I expected to have
this took
today.
this took a strange turn. So
Oh, but I love it. I mean, that's important information. That might save somebody's life. We don't know.
I like alligators, so I'm just trying to spread the good word, I guess.
There you go. Well, I have to know now, what happened to the houseboat? Do you still have it? Did you sell it? Like,
Unfortunately, I would have loved to keep it, but so I guess I have to kind of fill in the story in between. I met my partner during this time that I had lived on the houseboat probably about 2 months when I met him. We started to become friends. As much as I could not be on the houseboat, I wanted to be, and as the pandemic couple that survived the pandemic, you kind of spend 10 hours a day with each other as you're dating. Point, he came to see where I was living, and he looked at me and he was like, "I don't feel comfortable knowing that you live here and you're, like, almost an hour away from me, and I don't have any way to, like, come help you if you need help. You don't live here anymore."
I mean, all valid points. He was like, "I'm not leaving you here to get eaten by an alligator," regardless of what you just said.
Yeah, so he was like, "You can just," and he has his own story. He ended up having to move back in with his mom and everything, and we're a lot better now. You can live in this tiny room I'm sharing at my mom's place and bring your dog, but you're not living here anymore. We're gonna make it work.
Well,
So,
that was sweet.
yeah, and in the time between that and kind of us both getting jobs again, getting on our feet a little bit better, we ended up moving from Orlando to Atlanta. And when we were planning to do that, it just wasn't practical to try to keep the boat or keep paying for it. So I ended up having to sell it, but in some ways I actually cried the last day that we walked off of it, cuz for all of the difficulty and all of the stuff that I went through, that boat was my shelter and was my home for a while, and technically was the first home I've ever owned. So it had a lot of kind of emotional attachment to it in some ways.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and
I
now she's
learned.
taking care of somebody else.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because it was pretty cool to say I owned a boat from 1968.
Heck yeah. I mean, why not? Let's go back to the hotel. Is it Cassadaga? I don't wanna say it wrong. How do you say it?
Cassadaga, yeah.
Cassadaga. Okay, my bad. So, what was it like, working there and reading there and being in a haunted place all the time? I mean, that sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people that ghosts aren't as scary as people because
Yeah.
at least my view of it, ghosts, spirits, they kind of have to adhere to the universal laws. So if you don't allow them into your energetic space, they can't really breach that kind of rule. And so, like with my office, I basically kind of set up an energetic boundary and was like, you can do your thing out in the hallway. You can be here. This is your home. But like, I got to read clients in here. So just please don't come into my office. And the funny part about that is my coworker and I had rooms like across our her her office was down the hallway from mine. And a lot of times we would hear knocking on each other's door. So you'd hear a knock on your door and then you'd open the door and no one would be there. And then you'd walk down the hall and be like, did you just knock on my door?" And we would do that to each other so many times. We finally figured out it wasn't either of us. It was somebody was, I guess, annoyed that they couldn't come into my office or something.
Was it the dreaded 3 knock? They always say the Trinity, or was it
No, just like a double tap, and
just a
then
double?
sometimes you would hear footsteps walking down the hall. That's why you would think it was the other person.
Sounds like a ghost was just having a good time with y'all. He was like, "I'm just gonna play with both of them and make them crazy."
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, the work that I did there, obviously, in the middle of the pandemic, people were looking for spiritual help and guidance, and everybody was going through something at that time. And in some ways, I'm really grateful that that's the work I was doing at that moment, because getting to focus on helping other people definitely helped me not be constantly focused on my own stuff that was going on at the time, and feeling like I could serve and show up in some way. uh, even when it was sometimes really hard. I'm very grateful for that, and yeah, just I experienced some amazing stories. Uh, People coming in. My favorites are always the big burly men who come in for a reading. Because a lot of times they tell you things that they're not really sharing with the people around them. And I mean, I saw like the face of a loved one who had passed on, who I got to give them messages about. And it was, it's very profound and intimate work. And definitely taught me a lot about life and about how what people look like on the outside, you rarely know what they're going through under that. And so I would like to think that I myself as a person kind of deepened and grew in empathy and compassion from that. You learn as much from the people that you are reading for as what you hope that you're giving to them. Uh, but yeah, it was pretty cool to go to, because that whole area, the town of Cassadaga is a spiritualist camp. So all the houses there are like psychic mediums and Reiki healers and all kinds of stuff. So
That's so cool.
it's a very quirky place, but very, very cool and a really interesting chapter of my life for sure.
Do you have, like, a favorite story or a favorite, like, reading or a favorite, like, creepy thing that happened?
Ooh. Well, this one's I mean, I guess my favorite is sort of hard. It's kind of a sad story. That's why I'm hesitating. Uh, so this man came in one day for a reading, and I was kind of trying to figure out, he walks in and he doesn't look like your typical person who would go and get a tarot card reading. And, he's this big, burly, construction worker guy is what he told me he was. And I started to see this image of this young guy who looked just like the guy who was sitting in front of me, like same facial features, but he had curly brown hair instead of the straight brown hair that the guy in front of me had. And come to find out that his son had gotten in an accident on a construction site, and his dad had to basically make the decision whether or not to pull the plug.
Ugh, my heart.
Yeah. And what he wanted to know was, did he make the right decision? Gosh, how do you this is where you have to trust spirit and what's coming through you, because I
Mhm.
certainly as a human cannot give that advice to somebody else.
No.
But I could see the face of his son, and all I could feel was this sense of overwhelming peace and just this message of, your decision set him free. Your decision allowed him to now be at peace and move on to the next chapter of his spiritual growth and learning. And I'm getting like tingles now just talking about it, but it was that was probably my favorite reading I did. And it felt like it totally wasn't about me at all. It was just I still don't understand how I could see the face of his son or why those things could come through. Um, but it was really special to feel like at least he could have been provided some measure of peace around something that's just an impossible decision, an impossible situation to be put in.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I don't there are still some things from that time in my life that I don't feel like I'll ever have an explanation for, and that would be one of them. But it certainly feels good to know that our loved ones are with us, and that there's just so much more beyond what we're experiencing here, sometimes that can be a comfort when it feels like the shit's getting real and you're not sure
Yeah.
what it looks like on the other side. Um,
I'm
so
sure that provided a lot of comfort to his dad.
I hope so. I mean, when you're in that moment, you just hope that you hope you're saying the words that that person needs, and you have
Yeah.
to kind of trust that you are. But
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I would say that you did. I mean, maybe it not didn't take everything away, but at least I'm sure it gave him something.
Yeah, and that's the thing with intuition is that it's a knowing more than it is something that you can articulate. And as a reader, you're essentially interpreting these intuitive messages and trying to translate it in a way that the person in front of you can understand. Um, which is oddly related to what I do now with copywriting. Like it's the same thing when you have a message that you're trying to get through with your business. It's all well and good that you understand what you're trying to say, but you want to make sure that the person you're talking to is resonating with it and understanding it and transforming or making a different choice because of it. So, yeah, that's kind of a it's an interesting parallel I've noticed that I feel like being a tarot reader and a medium and a Reiki healer, having that intuition, it's applicable to anything you do after that. And I think everybody, any person cultivating their intuition can really benefit from that sense of awareness and inner knowing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And kind of speaking of that, why does the Queen of Swords speak to you so strongly?
Oh yeah. We were talking about this a little bit
We
before
were.
record. Um, I love that you're wearing your Queen of Swords necklace today.
I do. I do. I wear
um,
her all the time.
I love it. I have a ring with the Queen of Swords on it too.
It's
I
kismet.
Yeah, I mean, she's part of it is because I'm an Aquarius woman. So in the tarot, the Queen of
See?
Swords.
I'm an
Yep.
Aquarius too.
Yes. That's why I like you. My partner's an Aquarius man, so
Oh,
there's a
see?
lot of that energy around me, but
See, my partner's a Leo, which that's the sister sign, which also makes sense.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
And that the Queen of Swords basically represents any air sign feminine energy. So if you're a Gemini, if you're or you have that in your chart, Aquarius or you have that in your chart, Libra or you have that in your chart, you might resonate with the Queen of Swords because the other tarot queens, we love them. And I definitely
We
have a
do.
lot of Queen of Cups in my chart as well, the emotional side. But the Queen of Swords is a communicator, and she kind of cuts right to the heart of things. She is somebody who doesn't beat around the bush with her words, and she kind of says it like it is and means what she says, and a lot of times this earns her a reputation for being kind of, like, bitchy, for lack of a better word. Like, people often think, "Oh, that's that, kind of strong-willed, bullheaded kind of woman." Um, but I really see her as somebody who is a she can use words to move mountains. Like, her words and
I
her
like that.
communication is her strength, and her message is something that's really important to her. So, you can see why these words I'm using match really well with, like, a marketing and copywriting type business. But I also feel like me as a person, I've always loved, communicating, whether it's through the arts, whether it's through writing music, whether it's through, just writing words in general. And so I love the idea because she is kind of a no bullshit kind of person.
Mhm.
I think that the world needs more of that in our marketing. And not and being honest, really, to me, the Queen of Swords is just someone who is honest and authentic,
Yeah.
and, that can be really hard to be, especially in a world where we feel like everybody's got a camera on us always.
Yep.
Uh, but I also think that there's this thing happening right now where because we're so oversaturated with media, it's so refreshing when you hear from someone who's being real. Um, and, like,
100%.
those are the type of people I wanna work with in my business are people who want to really get to the heart of things and be honest about what they're struggling with, not trying to pretend like everything's perfect all the time,
Mhm.
and really being honest about what they're offering and what transformation people can expect from that offering realistically, as well as, obviously, spiritual entrepreneurs, we have this big vision, big dream. But I really like the idea of helping people bring that down into practical steps. And so that was a really long-winded way of just explaining like that image of the Queen of Swords just feels so aligned for what I'm doing professionally. So
Yeah. I like the Queen of Swords because to me, when I look at her, she's got one hand out and the other hand is holding the sword. And I love that it's basically saying, like, I'm here to help you, but if you cross me, I'm going to cut you off. And that's what I love about her.
yes. Yeah,
Like,
and you hit a really good point because I also decided when I started my business that I was going to stop doing the thing where I underestimate myself, undercut myself. Also, honestly, the word no is one of my favorite words now. Like, and I feel like that's very Queen of Swords is it's not a right fit. I'm I'm absolutely fine with just cutting it out, and it's like,
mhm.
it doesn't have to be rude, it doesn't have to be unkind, but that boundary she's a boundary queen, and I love
She is a
that.
boundary queen. Yes, exactly. She's a boundary queen. Exactly. So how did you get into copywriting? You went from being so musically inclined and so artistically creative, not to say that you're not still, but how did you move from that to getting into copywriting?
Well, my time at Cassadaga, while it was incredible, it was also, like I said, in the midst of a lot of struggle. I read over 200 people in less than 6 months,
Wow.
and and
That's a
yeah,
lot of people.
and so I kind of just decided I need to take a step away. I need to kind of handle my own stuff before I try to help others. And as I stepped away, it was kinda like, okay, doing one sorta dead end I call them real people jobs, right? The jobs that pay the
Yeah.
rent but aren't really what you love. And I did that for probably 2 or 3 years and finally was just like, I am the most efficient person at this job. I'm doing twice the work of everyone else, and I'm not seeing any benefit from it. And right around the same time, I got an Instagram ad for a copywriting course. And I thought to myself, this just feels like the right timing. And so the more I learned about copywriting and marketing, the more I just realized basically I just get to be a cheerleader for other people's businesses. Like the same way I did with tarot, you see the magic in that other person and you help them see it. I feel like that's what a copywriter and a marketing strategist does for businesses. And so, yeah, I kind of dove in and I started my own business. I quit my other job and was able to replace that income with money that I was bringing in my own right, which feels really good.
Mhm.
It's a little scary. Like entrepreneurship is certainly like there's a lot of ups and downs, but yeah, it just felt like it was such an easy aligned transition to be doing this. And I spend a lot of my time just networking with other people who are doing really awesome stuff, and that lights me up feeling like there are other humans in the world doing awesome things and who care about other people. And uh I wasn't feeling that at my other jobs. Like there wasn't that sense of purpose. So Yeah, and ironically, it had been years since I performed, and the month after I made the decision to quit my job, I actually got an opportunity to play Princess Diana in Diana the Musical in the national regional premiere of the show.
That's so cool.
Yeah, like, someone I went to college with 10 years ago messaged me out of the blue to come audition, and I hadn't performed in, like, 3.5 years, and I went from no performance opportunities since the pandemic to playing a lead in a show.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, so it and I say that not I'm not trying to say like, "Look at my amazing life." It's more like
Oh,
when you take that step to I kinda took a leap of faith and decided to follow what really my heart and my spirit was telling me to do, and then all of a sudden things started happening for me that I never could have created for myself. And, it's funny, as a tarot reader, as a healer, as all those things, you see it so many times in other people, and you can see it coming for other people. Um, but it's really easy to be like, "Well, I'm the vessel, I'm the thing, I just help
yeah.
others."
Mhm.
And doing that for myself in my own life and seeing that result happen, it's just really affirming, and I'm excited to see what the next step is, the next chapter, because there's just I've kind of surrendered thinking I know what the next part is gonna look like or that I can even write it all myself, and yeah, this business has helped me do that, like, be more open to opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched Bashar, but I feel like most spiritual people at one point or another have seen Bashar, but he always says not to worry about the how, just to go along with it, and if you want money or you want whatever, like, it'll come to you, just don't worry about the how.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to take the steps and put in the work,
Absolutely.
but then the way that spirit meets you halfway, it's, like,
Yes.
unbelievable what can happen. I mean, I just in the conversation we've been having, like, I met my partner. I struggled for years just with one toxic relationship after another, and I met my partner in the middle of the pandemic when nobody was meeting anyone. I didn't know him before. We literally met during 2020, and, one of the biggest performance opportunities of my life happening when I wasn't even trying to be a performer. Like, getting a job as a tarot reader that I was struggling to do prior to the pandemic, and my friend just, like, basically handing it to me,
Mhm.
like, that's kinda how it goes.
Yeah.
You try and you try and you try and nothing happens, and then when you sort of release the idea that you're in control, suddenly things start happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite thing about copywriting, or do you just enjoy it in general?
I really think the favorite thing for me is I think I sort of already touched on it. Just getting to be a cheerleader for other people's businesses. Like, I love the idea that I can mirror back to my clients what they do that's amazing. Cause we're this close to our business. And so
Mhm.
sometimes we forget what makes us so special. And it makes me really happy to kind of create a piece of writing and show it to that person and have them go, "Oh my gosh, like, you see me, like, you get it," and I couldn't have put those words together in that way for myself, but seeing it on paper, like, it feels so right. I think I live for those moments.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I think not enough of us are cheerleaders for each other. We're so caught up in competing. So it's nice to hear you talk about like just lifting each other up because that's what we need to do more of.
Oh my gosh, I've been so lucky in this space that the majority of people that I've met are just really in that community-minded place. where they realize that there's room for all of us and
Mhm.
that honestly collaboration, this is like my little soapbox is like collaboration is the key to everything when you're an entrepreneur. Not seeing each other as competition, but as, we rise together, we bring mutual value to each other and all of the people that we both serve. That's been just a game changer. And it's actually I just released an online course, and one of the sections of my course is about networking and collaboration, and especially for new entrepreneurs and small businesses, that networking aspect, you can do so much more together than what you can ever do by yourself. And so I'm
Absolutely.
super passionate about that, and that's why it's like I'm over in LinkedIn sharing and liking and like communicating with people, like amplifying other people all the time because yeah, it just that energy just builds.
Yeah. I love it. No, that's amazing. Um, that just makes me so happy. But anyway.
Yay. Well, even you, like I was so excited that you invited me to
Yeah.
do this, and I love the whole concept of your podcast is great.
Oh,
You
thank
know,
you.
we need more places where people are talking about what it's like to be in the shit rather than pretending like we're totally put together and we've got it figured out.
Yeah.
Um
Exactly. And if anybody wants to work with you to figure out their shit or need copywriting services or want to take your courses, how do they connect with you?
yeah, so my website is just www.queenofswordscopy.com. And you can find all my offerings there. I have a consultation call, so if you're not sure and you just want to chat with me for a little while for free, we'll talk and we'll see what I do that might be a good fit for you. And if we're not a good fit, I promise you I know somebody who might be for whatever you need. So I've really built a nice network. So I'd love to connect. And yeah, you can find me at queenofswordscopy.com.
That's amazing. Okay, perfect. And is there any like final words of advice or just final things you want to leave our listeners with?
Ooh, this is a good question. I think what I wanna say is that if you're in that phase of your business or your life where you're just feeling like it's one loss after another or one thing happening after another and you don't feel like you can pick yourself up, you are more resilient than what you know, and there is going to be a time. It might be in the future, but there'll be a time where you won't have to be resilient anymore, where you can lean on the people around you and allow them to lift you up instead of always having to be the strong one. So just hold on to that idea that there's something better that's coming and just take the best care of yourself that you possibly can when you're in the in between. That's the most I can say.
I mean, good advice. I like it. Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm so happy you were able to be here with me.
Yay! It was so nice to talk with you, and good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you. And this is how to deal when the shit gets real, guys. See you all next episode.